the soundboard, you've got one of two choices. You're either using mahogany or spruce. If you're using mahogany, you should have received it with your back set, and that's great. If not, you're going to choose a piece of spruce, which is much lighter. It comes a little bit differently. It's already been cut into a set and has tape on it so that it doesn't get misplaced. Okay, if you're using mahogany, you're going to go through the same steps as you did for your back, which is to joint an edge. I'm looking here at our steps, joining an edge, and then table sawing it to 8 1/4. Then we take it through the resaw bandsaw and cut it along its center, and it opens up to a book match, just like this one is now. I'm going to demonstrate on this one. I can either book match it this way or the other way around, and I want to try it, so I'm peeling it from the tape. I think I like that better. So I'm going to now joint the inside edge . Joint there and joint this, so that we can then glue them together. Let's go over to the jointer. It's okay to do both of these together, but you'll notice there is quite a bit of warp in my pieces, and that's okay. Right? We're going to glue them together, then sand them flat, plane them, sand them flat, and even if they bow a little bit, it's going to be so thin that we can manipulate it however we want to later. It'll pose a little bit of a challenge for my jointing though. I've got to make connection at 90 degrees down here, and that's not going to allow me much room against the fence, but I can hold it pretty steady like that. Looks good. I've set up two pipe clamps. I think I'll move this one over so that I'm on both extremes, and then we'll take another clamp and put it over the top. Let's do a dry fit, which means put it together without glue. I'm going to start with the center clamp because there's a little bit, because of the warp in these pieces, they're going to want to jump around, and I don't want that. Right, I want to make sure they're nice and flush on the top, even if they're not the same thickness. These two are pretty good, but if they're not the same thickness, that's okay. Make it flush on top. And I can see that this thing is like, oh, no worries. It'll still work. As long as I get a tight joint there, now it's slipped out here. Wow, look how that thing's bouncing around. Let's do a different strategy. We're going to use a splint to keep these things down and flat. Because they're so bowed, see, I have down below a couple of pieces that I can use. And if you're not finding this kind of stuff down below, just get something out of the shorts bin. That works too. I'm going to grab something I can, for splints, right? I can grab something out of the garbage can. Those will work great. If not, grab something out of the shorts bin. You just want to make sure that you put some tape on them so that when we put it on as a splint, the glue doesn't make it stick. Okay. And the way I'm going to handle it is put a piece that has been jointed straight there and one there and clamp them together. Forcing this thing flat. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now let's try the same thing again. Pushing them down so that they're flush with each other. They can be slightly off, about a 32nd, but that's about all you want when using the thinner piece like this. If they're thicker, then you could probably be off by more, but that looks really good. Okay, that looks like it's going to work. Now I'm looking down the seam and making sure that there's no black line, right, created from a gap. Now that I'm satisfied, let's put some glue on. Side up. Had there been a black line on my dry fit, I would have suspected something wrong with my joint here and would probably rejoint it and see if I could make it a little better. Spread glue along the whole edge. Don't assume that it will spread itself, which it does not do very well. Set up my splint. Try to get these flushed up. See my squeeze out, that's good. kind of being cautious not to be put too much pressure. I could break this. It's fairly delicate. So unlike the other pieces that we did for the back, these are thin, and so take some caution. So I'm putting good pressure on it, but I'm not so much that it's going to break. Clean it off. And I don't think I even want to take these splints off. I don't think I even want to move it. So this has to sit for 15 minutes before I can take it out of the clamps. Because it's so fragile, I'm just going to leave it here. Now, I don't want you leaving it here overnight because another class will come in and they'll move it and they'll break it. So you need to get to it after it's set up and get it, put it back in your cubby. That'll happen in 15 minutes. You need to wait until it's fully cured before you sand it down to 1/8. That will take overnight before I can work on this again. Put your name on it, as always. Next day, here's my piece. Glue's cured, so it's ready to be sanded. I want to get off any excess glue that might be there. I'm going to scrape it off with a glue scraper. Doesn't take much on that side. Let's see what the other side looks like. It's got a little heavier amount. And I'd like to see if I can get some of that off too. It's way easier to hold this scraper with two hands than to try to hold the work and scrape. You can't put enough pressure on it to get the glue up. Okay, that's adequate. Let's go over to the sander. Okay, we're going to plane this down first to 0.25. It's a little heavy. When I check it with the caliper, I'm reading 272. That's 5 passes through the sander. I can do it faster on this. So I'm going to run it once through, and then I'll move on to the sander. Before I run either of these machines, I need to make sure the dust collector's on. So I'm going to go turn that on first. Dust collector's on. I'm going to set this to 0.25. This is the smoother side, so I'm going to put that side down. This is the more uneven side. So, program 0.25. Start. That only removed about 0.25. So now we're at almost, 250. So that's where we're going to start this. Keypad 0.25. Here are instructions. Okay, we just used the keypad, we set the thickness. Now we're going to turn the sanding belt on and the feed belt on. Got a lot of work to do on this side. But the other side too. So I'm going to flip it each time through. I take it down 5,000 each time. Coming to 0.245. The adjustment is down here. Flip it over, send it through. Up. 240. And I'm going to keep going 5,000 per pass, flipping it every time until it reaches 0.125. That's 1/8. Also, check it with the caliper and make sure it's reading 0.25. I don't know if I can get it there without measuring something. Right? Or close to. And that's great. Then you're done. Took me a little while to get this down to 1/8. So I'm going to mount it to my whiteboard, right, for protection. I don't like this thing, it's flimsy. I don't want carrying it. I don't want to move and hit another student and have it shattered into pieces. So I'm going to mount it. We need to work on it anyway. I'm also going to draw on here the outline. So I want to find center. And sometimes the grain is easy to see center, sometimes it's not. This one is pretty sketchy. And I'm seeing kind of this dark right there where it looks like there's two halves. I can also see a seam right there. It's hard to see, but it's there. So that's center. And that is center. This one's going to be a cutaway as opposed to a regular. And I want to show this one because, right, think of the way you play it. So if this is the front and you're right-handed, that cutaway is going to be on the right-hand side. If I was left-handed, it would be the opposite. Tuck it up to the top edge. Give yourself about a 1/4. And then draw it around. Now this one has the bridge on it and this, but they're really not necessary. We'll take care of that later. If you want to, you can put this on there and draw those two. This is for the headstock. That's not necessary to draw, definitely. When you tape your board down, it will be beneficial later when we do the rosette if you keep it relatively close to the top. So that's why I've left this space down here. I want it up here.